So today we're going to be continuing the Winning Loseable Fight series. This is the second one in the series. Today we're going to be looking at Comically Large Crosshair versus Malibu. The fight in particular we're going to look at is a fight on Hollywood, first point, where Malibu goes in with roughly 5 ultimates, and Comically Large Crosshair only has, I believe, 2 or 3 ultimates. And Malibu should win this fight. However, CLC manages to win the fight by using environment and baits Malibu in. So let's jump straight into it. Okay, so let's start the fight here. This is the fight. You can sort of see the base, right? You see Buck's got Blade, Hudra's almost got his ults, the rest of these three have got ults as well. CLC's got Ashe, Bob, they've got Rally, and they've almost got Square, right? So let's sort of look at this fight and sort of see how CLC ends up winning this, okay? So you see Malibu start with the Square to take space. They do a lot, they stack up, shoot Square, try and get a pick. CLC responds with the Bob. Bob gets immediately deleted. So you see Icy go take a high ground, and you see, this is where we'll talk about this in a second. But what ends up happening here is CLC splits up and they both go on high ground. And as soon as that happens, you see Malibu start sort of getting split up. And all of a sudden Malibu actually ends up losing this fight. So I sort of want to talk about this fight here and sort of explain what's going on. So if we look at this fight here, right, what ends up happening is what I like to call is Malibu got baited into a web. So what I mean by that is Malibu looks to push up in here, right? And as soon as they do that, right, CLC looks to split up and abuse both high grounds. So they put people up here and they put people up here. And as soon as this happens, right, when they push forward, Icy, who's on Sigma, comes over here and off angles here, right? I believe the Orisa, Bat, and I think Ashe, and maybe Genji come on this high ground and play this high ground too. And they basically pincer them, right? And Haru plays this very well, where he squares on this high ground here, and he uses his square to essentially amplify the damage. So the people who are stuck underneath on point basically are just going to get boxed in and blown up. So if we sort of watch this, right, this is exactly what happens. And the problem is Malibu doesn't have any real verticality, right? Maybe Genji has a little bit, maybe Ashe, if you think of Coach Gun, and then Bap, right? But that's not really enough to really contest the people on the high ground here. So because Malibu sort of goes to point without actually clearing the space, right, they get baited into what I like to call a web, right? Because again, you've got multiplying one angle here, and then maybe the Genji's over here, right? You can sort of see that this web that's sort of created, right? And Malibu, who ends up going inside said web, right? So let's sort of watch this again and see what happens. Okay, so you see them rush to point, right? As soon as this happens, right, Zolik goes for a rally, right? Because he sort of wants to have a lot of sustain, which may or may not have been needed, right? But as soon as that happens, Fishcake's rallies, right? Haru looks for a square on high ground, right? And now you see this high ground square, and they're forced to deflect and deal with that. But that square is so strong, right? And on top of that, you see Icy over here off-angling as well. And when that square happens, immediately Ultraviolet gets picked, and Ultraviolet, one of the sort of main healers, right? And since they're not really brawling right now, it's technically Ultraviolet. He gets immediately picked off, and Buck's trying to deal with contest with all this stuff. He's not getting much value, right? He tries to contest Icy, but he's not getting much value, right? You see Zolik here, he comes in, forces a brawl, and you can sort of see this pincer, right? We've got multiple people, multiple angles. I believe there might even be someone over here. So again, you can sort of see this web, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. You can sort of see it like that, right? And then you can sort of see Malibu is inside that web. Let's keep watching. So it keeps going, right? Buck's trying to get value, he's not getting much. Cedro gets immediately picked off, right? You can see the rest of the team sort of backed up, but like obviously Cedro, Buck weren't able to, right? They thought they could commit. And they sort of got baited in, and both of them die, right? And now they're rallying back in, but now it's a 63, and obviously it's gonna be very, very hard for Fishcake, Iced, and Odd to get value, so they immediately forced to back up. So this is sort of an example of winning a losable fight, right? I hope you guys understand, right, essentially how this works. And essentially what this is CLC is playing very smart. They realize that they can't win the next fight because the enemy team has so many ults. So they decide to play for angles, right? Instead of taking a straight up brawl, right, they decide to play for range, and they decide to play for angles. So they play it for that, right? And they play very slow, right? And they win. Obviously, the way of countering this is for Malibu is instead of just running in and trying to force a brawl, play a little slower, right? Understand where people are and just clear space, right? If they went high ground and like took this high ground, maybe spammed a little bit, forced Icy off there, that would sort of force, you know, CLC in a really awkward position where they might be forced to point or be forced to back up all the way or play like maybe like under cafe or maybe like the low ground trash can, right? And then they don't have as much space and it'll be harder for CLC to go for such a play. Right, it'll probably force a brawl. So remember, if you are in a situation like this, right, like Malibu, and you've got a lot of ults, make sure you scout, make sure you understand where the enemy is, and if they're sort of playing far away and stuff, and they're abusing high grounds, make sure you try and clear them out first before you just walk up, because you could sort of get webbed. Okay? Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good time.